Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Atlanta, Georgia, it's time for Atlanta Business Radio. Brought to you by OnPay, Atlanta's new standard in payroll. Now, here's your host.
Lee Cantor here, another episode of Atlanta Business Radio, and this is going to be a good one. But before we get started, it's important to recognize our sponsor, OnPay. Without them, we couldn't be sharing these important stories. Today on Atlanta Business Radio, we have Maurice Contreras with Volcanica Coffee. Welcome.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for having me on the show, Lee.
Well, I'm so excited to learn what you're up to. Tell us about Volcanica Coffee. How you serving folks?
Yeah, so Volcanica Coffee is a specialty coffee roaster. We're based right outside of the Atlanta area in the city of Sewanee. We've been in business for 20 years, and our focus is on specialty coffee, more on the exotic side, coffees that you usually don't find in a grocery store. We import from 40 different countries, and we offer over 150 different coffees. All of them are freshly roasted. And the primary focus of our business is business direct to consumer. We ship right out of our roastery across the country, across the world, and we're also available on Amazon and also on Walmart.com.
So what was the genesis of the idea? What got you into the coffee business?
Well, I'm actually from Costa Rica, so coffee has kind of been in our blood and my DNA for a long time. And I had a career in wireless marketing and was very successul at it. I helped create the brand TracFone Wireless, which was recently acquired by Verizon. And so I just was a little, had a little curiosity about building my own brand, building my own company. And then on one of our family vacations to Costa Rica, after touring coffee farm, I realized that there was an opportunity because the coffee was so great in Costa Rica. And this was 20 years ago. And the coffee in the United States was pretty lousy at that time. And so I built the business, brand, website, all of that back in 2004 and started importing coffee, starting with Costa Rica and Jamaica. And then I expanded. And this little side hustle that I started ended up becoming a full-time business. Now we have 20 employees and a 15,000 square foot roasting facility outside of Atlanta.
And it was always geared like kind of to the consumer directly and not through coffee shops or coffee stores or things like that. You were selling direct to the individual consumer of the product?
That is correct. Yeah, that is the main focus of our business. We are in the process of building out our wholesale business, though. So now we actually are supplying coffee shops, restaurants, and even Chateau Alon, the nice resort and winery here in North Georgia.
So when you're going direct to the consumer, had you had any experience doing kind of that digital marketing and online sales?
Yeah, I did, because when I was with TracFone, I helped build out the first website back, and this is late 90s. So it pretty much was just kind of like a brochureware. And then we ended up hiring a company that built out the e-commerce portion for TracFone Wireless. So I did have a background in that, and it was very intrigued by what was happening in the online space.
So what was kind of the initial launch strategy when you have a brand new brand like this and you can kind of, it's a blank sheet of paper. You could have, positioned yourself any way. The sky was the limit when it comes to how to position a brand new entity like this, but in and around a product that a lot of people are familiar with. Obviously, they weren't familiar with your specific brand, but they are familiar with coffee. So how did you go about positioning it the way you did and then launching it to get those initial buyers?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I had a background in marketing and had a lot of experience in brand marketing and creating brands. And so just went through the whole evolution of what is this brand? What is the name? What's our personality? And just jotting it down. I even bought books about it, just to help me. And then, once I did that, once I settled on the name of Volcanica Coffee, relating to volcanoes, because the best coffees in the world are grown on volcanic soil. Like in Costa Rica, they're up at 4,000 or 5,000 foot elevations. So that was the connection with the brand. And then so building the website, I learned how to code HTML by renting books at the library and built that. And then at the same time, I realized, well, there's this thing called SEO, search engine optimization, because just because you build it doesn't mean people are going to come. You have to build the website so that people can find it. So I immersed myself with SEO, learning all about that, and just started building the website from the ground up just so that we could get organic traffic. We did do some advertising early on. It was just very expensive. It was tough to have a profitable business with that. So our big focus was organic business, and then part of the business plan originally is because I had a pretty good full-time job. This was only something that I worked on at nights and weekends, and it was a intentionally throttled business for several years, until I became full-time on it.
So at the beginning, you tried to run ads, but you found that they were too expensive, I guess, to get an ROI that made sense to continue. How did you just, I guess because it wasn't urgent in terms of, we have to make payroll this week, so I have to really you could play kind of the long game on this because you had a full-time job, so you can experiment and be patient?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that's one of the virtues that somebody has to have in a business, and especially online businesses. It doesn't come overnight. I mean, yeah, there are some stories out there, but they're rare. It really comes from just time, from just building the momentum, from gaining the customer base, from gaining word of mouth. That's you really have to have patience.
So when did you kind of have a feeling like, hey, this could be something? Like, at first you have this dream, you go through all the process, you put it out there to the world, and then you kind of are waiting, right?
Yeah. So, after 4 years, we outgrew our garage. We were importing coffee packaging in our garage and shipping it out of our house. And then so we moved it to a co-packer. Our business kept growing, and then we outgrew our co-packer. So then it was, we kind of realized, it was either we need to sell this business or we need to go all in and just, take it to the limit. And just so happened around that time, that's when my son was finishing school and became available, and I employed him full time, and he really helped us out a lot, especially on from a social media side, but also from a coffee sourcing and building out the whole roastery and equipment and all that. He really got went all in on it.
But in those first 4 years, while you were still in the garage, were there times where you're like, this isn't working, or was it always like kind of you were always getting orders? It was always kind of positive, like when the mouse is in the maze, they got to get the cheese sometimes, or else they stop playing. So were there ever times where you were like, I don't know if this is going to make it? No, because the sales were always growing. It was like it's not like we went days or weeks without sales. We were always getting sales. It was just on a slow trajectory upward. So, I knew that, with time and with patience, that eventually the momentum would grow to the point where it did become a decent sized business. I did have some frustrating points, mostly from a IT perspective, where, there was a point in time where Yahoo, I was using Yahoo as a web hosting platform, and they caused some problems, and basically shut down our website for about 2 weeks, which was very painful. But we restored it and got everything back on track. Yeah, that's a lot of folks learn those hard lessons when it comes to their partners, especially in technology, where things are out of your control somewhat, that you got to have redundancy. You have to have kind of plan Bs, or else it can really bite you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So once you started getting the momentum, it keeps growing. Was it a difficult conversation in your family to say, okay, we're going all in on this? Or was it at that point you had so much momentum, it felt like a pretty safe bet?
Yeah, we were doing over $1 million in sales. So, and I just kind of feel like, hey, for a part-time business, that's not bad as a side hustle, doing $1 million in sales. And we were very profitable. I actually did a pro forma. I laid out the financial implications. What is the cost? What's our profit? Basically, on my pro forma, we got our investment back within 9 months, which was astronomical. So there was no doubt that it was the right thing to do, and everybody, in our family just, agreed and nodded their head. This is the right thing to do.
So now is the strategy the same? Like pretty much your word of mouth, and you're growing kind of organically off of existing customers and super fans, or now do you have partnerships? Do you use influencers? Has your marketing changed any?
Yeah, so we've tried almost everything. I can tell you. So we are, and a lot of it is try even the stuff that's working. Sometimes it stops working. Like, for example, Google advertising. It didn't work for us for a long time. I hired an agency a couple of years ago. It started working, started doing good. And then after I started peeking into the details of what they're doing, I realized, well, maybe it's not so good. So I fired them. And then I went back and started over. And now it's working again. We've done a lot of influencers, a lot of social media. Social media is really difficult in our space. I can tell you that. We've spent a lot of money testing and trying different things, and we're just refining the things that do work. And a lot of it kind of goes back to SEO. SEO is really important to us. We have an SEO agency that's helping us.
Now, is it what is the typical first purchase? Because people who drink coffee, they drink coffee, so they have their favorites. And are people's choice when it comes to coffee? They're more pliable than maybe some other brands, that they will try another brand if there's something compelling that gets them to to give it a shot.
Yeah. So the majority of our customers, I affectionately call them coffee snobs. We love them. They just love coffee. They are really into the industry and the flavor nuances of coffee. Coffee very much is like the wine industry, with all the varieties and all the different flavor notes and taste notes. Same thing with coffee. And those customers are the ones who make up the biggest part of our base. And they just find us because they're searching, they're curious, they became disenchanted with their local supplier. They like the varieties that we offer. They like the fact that all of our coffees are fresh roasted. They like the fact that we're top rated. We're 5-star rated on Trustpilot and also on Amazon. So we're pretty proud of that.
Now, when it comes to, is it sourcing just something that is, you got to do that all the time? You have to always be looking for kind of the next area where good coffee is being grown? Is it something that's just part of the DNA of your organization to always know that and be kind of on top of that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's really important. And we do sourcing trips to origin, like we go to Costa Rica. We almost went to Tanzania this summer. Weren't able to do that. We've gone to Jamaica, and we're making plans to go to Colombia. It's really important, to know who your farmers are and to have connections with them and to understand their farming practices and the quality. But part of the reason why we're also doing that is to cut out the middleman. There's a lot of brokers that deal with coffee, and we work with them. But some of our biggest supplies or biggest origin countries, we strive to get a direct connection, and we just order containers of green coffee beans directly from them.
Now, what's maybe a myth you can educate our listeners about when it comes to coffee that maybe some of the larger players are doing that a boutique company like yours is doing it maybe, I don't want to say better, but in a different way?
Well, one of the myths is that grocery store coffee is good. And I say that because by the time a coffee arrives in a grocery store, it was probably roasted a few months prior, maybe even several months, maybe even up to a year old. And coffee just starts to deteriorate very quickly as soon as it's roasted. The actual coffee is good to be enjoyed within 60 days as whole bean. But if you grind the coffee, you have 2 weeks, and then the quality starts to decay very rapidly. And, for that reason, most of the coffee you see in the grocery store is ground. It's in a bag. It was roasted many months ago. That stuff isn't even close to what it originally tasted like. And that's one of the myths. A lot of people don't realize that they're drinking just like really low quality coffee from the grocery store when there's a much greater experience if you buy it closer to the source, something that's fresher from the roast date.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that. My wife, she's just started making fresh granola, and so she does everything from scratch. And then the taste of it is totally different than store-bought granola. And now the joke is when we go to the grocery store is like, we're like, do you want that factory granola? And we're like, no, we don't want the factory granola. We want that homemade granola that's fresh. That it's a different food almost.
Yeah, absolutely. And I grew up in Florida, and I use orange juice as the analogy. Everybody knows that fresh squeezed orange juice is great and outstanding. But then if you go back, into the store, then there's previously squeezed, or just say in a jug at the grocery store. That's okay. It's not bad. But you go back another step, and this is what I grew up on, was concentrate orange juice. It was frozen, and you would mix it in a pitcher with water. And that was horrible, but that's what I understood as orange juice when I was a kid. And there's a big difference from frozen orange juice to something that's fresh squeezed.
So your best customers are that discerning coffee drinker?
That's right. Yep.
Now, a couple announcements I know that you're excited about is one with the DK Metcalf charity partnership. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so DK Metcalf, the tight end for Seattle Seahawks, this was a couple years ago on Monday Night Football. He pass was thrown to him, and he dropped the ball. And Joe Tessitore from ESPN, who's calling the Monday Night Football game, called him Decaf instead of Metcalf by accident. He caught himself and reversed it, but the Twitter sphere went on fire because of that, because it was called Decaf. Metcalf is now Decaf, and the next day we were on the phone with his agent, and we put a deal together, and we've been selling his coffee ever since then. And a portion of that goes towards to a charity that DK Metcalf has requested, and also one from Joe Tessitore. So it's kind of fun, aligning ourselves with the star NFL player, and it's a really good coffee too.
And also, you have a new USDA organic certification?
Yeah. In late last year, we became officially USDA organic certified. And I think we have like around 7 or 8 different coffees that are all organic. There's no pesticides, no fertilizer, inorganic fertilizers have been used on those. So yeah, and they're good coffees too.
Well, congratulations on all the success. If somebody wants to learn more, what is the website and what are the kind of the socials to find you guys?
So we're at Volcanica Coffee, and that's spelled like volcanic with an A at the end, VOLCANICA coffee. And then our website is volcanicacoffee.com. You will also find us on Amazon. We have a large selection of our coffees at Amazon.
And that's the best way to buy it. Is the only way to buy it is direct, right? You can't find them in stores yet.
Yeah, so we do supply a couple of coffee shops in the Atlanta area, but not in grocery stores.
Well, congratulations on all the success. You're doing important work, and we appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lee.
Well, thank you for sharing your story. This is Lee Cantor. We'll see you all next time on Atlanta Business Radio.